It certainly is the big international news story. Former British Prime Minister David Cameron has made a shock return to government. Cameron has been named as the country's new foreign minister as Prime Minister Rishi Sunak reshuffles his cabinet. The 57-year-old served as Prime Minister from 2010 to 2016, resigning after the outcome of the Brexit referendum when Britain voted to leave the European Union. Sunak's office says King Charles approved giving Cameron a seat in Britain's upper chamber, allowing him to return to government as a minister despite no longer being an elected member of Parliament. So let's unpack the story further. We're joined this morning by UK commentator Vicky Sleight. It's great to talk to you. I'm just taking a look at some of the front pages in the UK. The Guardian saying, "Back to the future." How is this being received at home?
Well, yesterday morning, to be honest, no one on planet Earth could have opened a book on this one. It is actually a reshuffle with booster rockets attached, is the way that we're seeing it. And it's something that wasn't leaked. So, and usually things are leaked from Number 10, but this wasn't. I think putting David Cameron back into the heart of government might not be seen as the change Rishi Sunak, our current PM, wants us to see, but it can be seen as bold. As you said, David Cameron had 6 years as a PM. So essentially what he does have is the stature and the experience and the connections on the foreign stage. So he will be able to hit the ground running as Foreign Secretary. And this morning and yesterday, the headlines were not about the Tory rift and the sacking of Suella Braverman as Home Secretary. They are literally about this rescue mission with David Cameron topping the headlines. And it is a shock return to frontline politics. He is the first ex-PM to come back to office. He is that new known figure, and that's what the British public needs, whether you appreciate the fact that he's back or whether you don't.
Vicky, would you say that, that this is a step back? Would you say it's a sign of desperation on the part of Rishi Sunak, especially ahead of the elections in 2025? I mean, is he hoping, he's obviously hoping to bring back some of that experience, but is he hoping to get some advice ahead of 2025?
I think Sunak has been getting advice, not just from David Cameron, but from some of the other former PMs. You're right, there is a strategy here. Sunak has been lagging in the polls, so this is the strategy. And there's always two parts to it. It has sparked a backlash from Brexiteers. Although with Cameron, he does predate Boris Johnson, he predates the pandemic. So there's the strategy and the thinking behind that. So he therefore may help the Tory party win back wavering Tory voters. But what's not been seen as so great is, oh, hey, look at how you get made a baron and a lord in a 3-minute period. Just to give Cameron back a job. There's talk behind the scenes as well of the company that Cameron started. Is that making money now? That's still that investigation is ongoing. So what they've done really is bucked the system. But I can see why Sunak has done it. We can all see that. And it is part of this strategy to stop the lagging that's going on in the polls right now. Remember, Rishi Sunak was not an elected Prime Minister. And so, this is what the worrying thing is now. In less than a year, we will have the general election. So this is part of his move. He's made the cabinet now with this reshuffle more of, so it looks more like what he wants, and he wants that loyalty. I would love to be a fly on the wall this morning for their first cabinet meeting. Where they have to, they will probably be discussing Suella Braverman's previous policy on immigration and having, immigration send people out to Rwanda. There's a High Court ruling coming out this morning on that.
Yeah. I imagine, from what you're saying, that it's being received very, very differently in different quarters, even within the Tories, and perhaps also especially because he backed Brexit Remain.
Yes, and of course the country's always been divided on that, and so now coming back into this, it kind of brings two different camps together. So I think the next few days are going to prove very interesting. And in fact, actually, what comes out of the cabinet meeting this morning, they will be meeting in a couple of hours over at Number 10. I think you know, Cameron has got, he's got guts and he's got candour. Whether people appreciate the fact that he's back in frontline politics or not. He has spent, I think it's the last 7 years, outside of politics and working in the corporate world. And he said, it's an interview that he did when he first left office to say he would never come back. So I think it's been interesting, the conversations that must have gone on between him and the PM and the strategy that they've put behind it.
And perhaps he can bring some of that corporate know-how to even this position and to the advice that he gives, Rishi Sunak.
Yes, I definitely think so. I think for the party as well, there's longer-term problems now for them, including him and Rishi Sunak. Remember, you know, and we're not talking about it this morning, but Suella Braverman was sacked. And as she's already gone for a party leadership bid. As a backbencher now, she's already said she will not go to the backbench quietly. She is now free to make her bid again for leadership of the Conservative Party. So again, coming back to that strategic change Sunak has made for the next general election, and part of that is Cameron.
Yeah, absolutely. You've talked a lot about Suella Braverman. That was obviously, her sacking was an important thing for Rishi Sunak. What does it say about the makeup of his team and what kind of team he is prepping for 2025?
I think the team he's prepping for 2025, he's made the cabinet now looks more like himself, but it has incited some women's group who've reacted with concern and anger. There's a much lower representation of women now in the cabinet. Rishi's removed 11 members of his predecessor's top team. And he's put together a cabinet that he said reflects a united party by showcasing all the talents. Under the changes, however, there's fewer than a quarter of all the people, about 23%, able to attend cabinet meetings who will actually be women. So he's really not reflecting in that sense, the voters. So I think, this really needs to be looked at. This is, from a female perspective, this is down from nearly a third at the start of Liz Truss's premiership, and is also lower than under Boris Johnson at 24%.
Yeah.
So women are kind of underrepresented, and I think that's something that will be picked up on. In fact, it already has over here.
Is Rishi Sunak, and perhaps, given these big decisions, these big moves he's made over the past weeks, is he quite a gambling PM? And is this perhaps his last big decision of this nature?
I think it will be his last big decision of this nature. And I think, going forward, he is very focused on the election. He has talked a lot, particularly in the last few days and before this announcement, about wanting to bring change. And some of the, the big broadcasts that he has done have talked about change, but they haven't gone down very well. And he's still the poll lagging, and the numbers are going down in the polls. So this has got to be his last decision. They now have to pull that strategy together to be able to go forward for the general election. And I think there's already been some calls of lack of confidence that have gone out last night, overnight. I think there will be more of those as well.
Vicky Sleight, a great pleasure talking to you. UK commentator joining us from London this morning. David Cameron making a comeback now as Foreign Minister.